The night was cold. It was the 1st of April, 1873. A dense fog clung to the rugged coast of Nova Scotia, a thick, wet blanket that swallowed sound and light. On the bridge of the SS Atlantic, Captain James Williams peered into the impenetrable blackness. He believed he was safely in the wide mouth of Halifax harbor. He was wrong. The ship was miles off course, steaming at a steady 12 knots toward a deadly shore. Below decks, nearly 1,000 souls slept, unaware of the peril that lay just ahead. The SS Atlantic was more than just a ship, it was a promise. Launched in 1871, it was one of the first ocean liners built for the burgeoning White Star Line. She was a vessel of the future. Her sleek iron hull stretched nearly 420 feet. A single, elegant funnel rose amidships, billowing smoke that was a symbol of industrial power. 4 tall masts carried sails, a nod to the past, but her true strength lay deep within her belly. A massive compound steam engine propelled her through the water with a speed and reliability that sail power could never match. She was designed for the competitive North Atlantic run, a floating bridge between the old world and the new. The voyage had been brutal. A powerful storm, a late-season gale, had battered the Atlantic for days. It slowed the ship's progress and consumed coal at an alarming rate. Captain Williams grew concerned. As the ship neared the coast of North America, the chief engineer delivered grave news. They would not have enough fuel to reach New York. A decision had to be made. A diversion was necessary. Captain Williams chose to head for the nearest major port, Halifax, Nova Scotia. It was a sensible decision, a standard procedure for a ship low on fuel, but it was the first link in a chain of catastrophic errors. The captain, confident in his navigation, believed he knew his position. He consulted his charts, but he failed to account for a strong southerly current that had been pushing his ship steadily off course for hours. At 3:15 in the morning, the SS Atlantic struck rock. The impact was not a single, sharp crash, but a series of horrific, grinding shudders. The ship ran hard aground on Meggers Rock, an underwater ledge just off the coast of Mars Island. Below decks, passengers were thrown from their bunks. The sound was deafening. It was the shriek of tortured metal, the roar of the sea pouring into the ship, and the sudden, terrifying silence as the great engines stopped. In an instant, the ordered world of the ship dissolved into pure chaos. Panic erupted in the darkness. The ship immediately began to list heavily to its port side. Within minutes, the Atlantic was hit by another massive wave. The force of the water lifted the wounded vessel and slammed it down again, splitting it into 2 pieces near the stern. In the heart of the chaos, remarkable acts of bravery unfolded. As the ship lay broken on the rock, a handful of crewmen recognized that their only hope was to establish a line to a small, wave-swept rock that lay between the wreck and the shore. Third Officer Cornelius Brady and Quartermasters Robert Thomas and John Speakman tied ropes around their waists and plunged into the frigid, violent water. They fought against the powerful surge, struggling through the debris, their bodies battered by the waves. Time and again they were thrown back, but they persisted. After a grueling struggle, the men managed to reach the small barren rock. They secured a line. Now, a perilous bridge existed between the dying ship and this tiny temporary sanctuary. Among the survivors was the ship's quartermaster, a man named John Hindley. He saw that the first rock was not enough. The shore was still 100 yards away. He bravely took up the line and swam from the first rock toward the mainland, a feat of incredible endurance. He reached the shore, and with the help of those who had made it across, they secured a heavier line. Now a new, more stable bridge was established, and the slow, painful evacuation from the wreck and the rock could continue. As the first light of dawn broke through the fog, the fishermen of Lower Prospect awoke to a horrific sight. The great steamer, a vessel larger than anything they had ever seen up close, was smashed upon the rocks at the entrance to their cove. Without a moment's hesitation, the entire community sprang into action. Men launched their small, sturdy fishing boats, dories and wherries, and rowed out into the still treacherous waters. They were not trained rescuers, they were fishermen, husbands, and fathers, but they rowed toward the disaster with unwavering courage. These men, from families named Clancy, Coolin, and O'Brien, navigated their small boats through the dangerous maze of rocks and wreckage. They pulled exhausted survivors from the water and off the isolated rock where so many had huddled through the night. They brought the living back to shore first, wrapping them in blankets and carrying them to the warmth of their small homes. Their wives and mothers met them on the shore, ready with hot drinks, food, and dry clothes. Every home in the tiny village became a makeshift hospital and morgue. The women of Prospect cared for the survivors, tending to their injuries, which ranged from broken bones to severe hypothermia. News of the disaster reached Halifax by mid-morning, carried by a man on horseback. The city was thrown into a state of shock and mourning. Immediately, vessels were dispatched from the harbor, including ships from the Royal Navy, to assist in the recovery effort. They arrived at the scene to find the sea calming but the evidence of the catastrophe everywhere. The bodies were brought back to Halifax and laid out in a temporary morgue set up in a waterfront warehouse. The scale of the loss was staggering. Of the 952 people on board, at least 550 had perished. An official inquiry was launched almost immediately. The Board of Trade Investigations sought to uncover the cause of the wreck. Captain Williams and his surviving officers were called to testify. The inquiry revealed the series of errors: the failure to account for the ocean current, the decision to maintain high speed in the fog, and the lack of proper navigational checks. For days, the city was consumed by the tragedy. Funerals were held, and long trenches were dug in local cemeteries to serve as mass graves for the unidentified. Today is August 18, 2025. Over 150 years have passed since the SS Atlantic met its end on the shores of Nova Scotia. The world has changed in ways Captain Williams could never have imagined. We have GPS, radar, and global satellite communication. Ships are larger, stronger, and built with safety features that are a direct legacy of tragedies like this one. It is easy to look back at the disaster as a relic of a bygone era, a story of iron ships and steam power that has little relevance to our modern lives. But to do so is to miss the essential, timeless lesson of the Atlantic. We remember the SS Atlantic not just for the scale of the loss, but for the human stories at its heart. We remember the hopes of the immigrants who risked everything for a new beginning only to have their dreams extinguished in the icy water. We remember the terror and confusion of that terrible night, the desperate struggle for survival against impossible odds. And most importantly, we remember the incredible bravery and compassion that shone through the darkness, the courage of the crewmen who strung the lines, and the unwavering humanity of the fishermen of Prospect who rode into danger to save strangers. The story of the Atlantic is a powerful reminder of human fallibility. It is a cautionary tale about how overconfidence, fatigue, and a cascade of small mistakes can lead to catastrophe. Technology has advanced, but the human element remains the most critical, and often the most vulnerable part of any system. To remember the SS Atlantic is to honor the memory of the 550 people who died. It is to ensure that their story is not forgotten, lost to the depths like the stern of their ship. By remembering the wreck of the SS Atlantic, we keep alive the echoes of their journey, their loss, and the enduring power of human courage and compassion in the face of disaster. Their story is now part of our story,